You are live. Okay. Looks like I'm live here on my Facebook and my LinkedIn and my YouTube. It's Joran. I'm here this morning to talk about creativity and business. This has been a big hot topic in my amplified coaching group. So the creativity and the design thinking, this is what people seem to want more of right now. So I figured I'd get on here, talk a little bit about that. What I wanted to touch on, I think, on the topic was this kind of the act of creation and creativity. I think we tend as business owners or people in business to get a little bit lost in the complexity and what we call VUCA, right? Environment, the volatile, uncertain, chaotic. What's the A? Ambiguous environments in business. And so I want to start there on how to kind of think about creativity. If you're in a complex, and most business environments are, space. First, I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and I wanted to encourage you to leave a comment in the chat. If you are watching this on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, please leave me a comment so that I know you're watching and can see it. I'm also testing this software called StreamYard, and I need to know if it works or not. So if you see me talking and can hear me talking, go ahead and leave a comment so that I can respond either in the chat or, here on camera. It's the afternoon on Monday, and so I hope everybody's week is kicked off to a good start. I hope you're having a good lunch hour wherever you are, or breakfast, dinner, wherever you are in the world tuning in. Here to talk about creativity today and what it has to do with business. One of the things that I think is important to use to kind of frame this conversation is the work of Arthur Kessler. He's he's my probably favorite author of all time. He's written fiction and nonfiction. He's written, he was a journalist. He's written about religion and spirituality and science, essays. If you're not familiar with the work of Arthur Kessler, I would recommend starting with a book of his called Janus, Janus, just like the Roman god. It's called Janus, a summing up, and it's a really, really great. It's not an anthology of his work, but it was a turning point in his career where he had floated a lot of ideas and felt that he needed to frame them together, and he did that in the book Janus, a summing up. Again, if you're watching, please leave a comment wherever you're watching, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, so that I know you're watching and can say hello and answer any questions. We're here talking about creativity and business today and the work of Arthur Kessler. So in addition to his book, Janus, being a kind of a life changer, game changer for me, I discovered him as a teenager. He wrote a book called The Act of Creation back in, I want to say it was the 50s. And he defined the creative act as an exercise or a behavior in bisocitive thinking. Now, he was jumping off of the term associative thinking that was used in psychology at the time. But he said there's something called bisociative thinking. There's an instance where I have one foot in one scenario and my other foot in another scenario, and that's exactly what creativity is. This was his premise, and you can see this in art. You can see the artist living in a certain time or having a certain frame of reference or historical context or viewpoint, but then creating something well outside the bounds, well outside any of those restrictions, right? That's an example of bisociative thinking, that leap ahead or outside of the context or the box, right? You see this in science too. Science is that's what science is that you've got a thesis or a hypothesis, and you've got something that is a proof, and then other information comes along. You maybe test this and validate that, and now you have a new hypothesis, right? You've got to be able to think beyond what you can prove now in order to have what's known as a scientific method, which is another example of bisociative thinking, according to Kessler. Again, leave a comment in the chat if you're watching. We're talking about what creativity has to do with business, and I'm taking the long way around by talking about the work of Arthur Kessler and his book, The Act of Creation. We've talked about art. We've talked about science. Another example is comedy. This is a really great example that he uses in the book to talk about the comic or the satirist or the humorist who, again, has a historical context and a frame of reference, sets up through a story or a setup, and then the punchline is something that comes out of left field. It's as if the comic is at a different point on the playing field or landscape the entire time, and then at the end with the punchline reveals where they are mentally. It's a surprise to the audience or to the listener, and that's what makes it funny. That's what makes punchlines funny, is that it's something you don't expect to hear. So another example, Kessler argues, of bisociative thinking. So these are all what he talks about in the book, The Act of Creation. And I would add that in business, we do the exact same thing. We use bisociative thinking. We use the ability to imagine beyond, to innovate and create outside the box by taking into account either the leader that we are or the business that we have, and at the same time have another foot in the leader we are becoming or the business we are building, right? That kind of bisociative thinking is important. And that is the act of creativity. And that's exactly what creativity has to do with business. We've got to be able to have more than one viewpoint. We've got to be able to lead along multiple horizons. We've got to be able to run multiple operating systems in our head. We've got to be able to use and employ multiple management frameworks in our head for multiple teams that we might be working with or running or leading or be a part of ourselves, right? That is bisociative thinking, and that is creativity in business. The more we flex that muscle, that thinking outside the box muscle, the better we get at bisociative thinking, and the better we get at creativity and innovation inside our business. So it's a lot of what we do at Illustrious, is help people think creatively, visually, outside the box, reframing, finding new reference points, coming up with new context, new metaphors, new language, new visual artifacts, and with all, again, with that kind of source code of a real high belief in human potential, a really, really deep-seated belief in who the person across from us is becoming, right? Who they're growing into as a leader or an executive or a team member or a manager, director, CEO, you name it. That's a lot of the work we do. So you might be wondering, how do I do that, right? How do I start to think outside the box, right? I don't consider myself a creative person. I'm not a writer. I'm not an artist. And a lot of us kind of get stuck in that story that we tell, like, I'm not a creative person, so what could I possibly bring to the table, right? If you're watching, please leave a comment in the chat here on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, wherever you're tuning in, and let me know that you can see me and hear me. I want to give you a couple ways to begin to employ this bisociative thinking that Kessler calls it, this thinking outside the box. If you are one of those people who thinks of themselves as a non-creative, or maybe holds themselves back, maybe withholds their contribution on the team because they feel like, well, we've got creative directors and we've got designers and UX people, and we've got people for that creative stuff. You don't need my input, right? Wrong. We need your input. Everybody needs your input. We need everyone's input. So a couple ways that you can kind of draw out your own creativity. Kessler writes about the two methods, and I'll just talk about those first. One of them he talks about is dreaming, right? So in dreams, we are able to tap into, some might refer to it as the subconscious, some might refer to it as this kind of, archetypal flow that's happening in our brain, this interplay, this firing of neurons while we're asleep. Our dreams reveal stories to us, and that are very helpful in thinking outside the box and escaping from those routines of thinking and behaving. So if you have dreams about a scenario, you might write them down. You might journal about them. You might draw sketches of them. You might just ask yourself, what might my dreams, and that might not be sleeping dreams either. It might be waking dreams, daydreams, fantasies. What might my dreams be telling me about the business? How might my dreams help the business, right? And help me kind of grow and adapt inside it. The second thing that he talks about is reframing, right? And reframing, for me in coaching, takes on a different meaning. It means that we are, kind of putting a pin in, and we're finding different language in the moment for, maybe we've told ourselves a story that we're, again, a non-creative, that we have nothing to contribute. We might reframe that into, what is the power that you're using? What is the competency that you can leverage in that moment? It's maybe not withholding, but it's maybe observing. It's maybe hanging back and waiting for the right time. So instead of saying, I'm not a creative person, you might say, well, I'm a strategic thinker. I'm a visual thinker. I like to observe, and then I contribute when the time is right. So reframing that in coaching is important too. But when Kessler refers to reframing, he's talking about this flash of insight, this aha moment that we might all have had and can relate to. And that is when you're thinking about along one line of thought and telling one certain story, all of a sudden there's a flash and a moment where everything changes. Maybe you kind of zoom out and you're able to see things in a different perspective. Maybe you change perspective and you can see things from a different role or character inside the story. All of those things, all of those reframing moments provide a deeper empathy. They provide greater context, greater depth, greater complexity to the scenario, to the story that you're telling. So all of those breaking out of the routines of the behaviors and the thinking can be done through the dreaming or the reframing. And those are just two simple ways to do it if you don't think you're, a creative person. Figure out a way that your dreams can inform your business, and also figure out ways to reframe the story you're telling, or the messaging that you're putting in place around yourself inside the business. So that's what creativity has to do with business. If you've watched this all the way to the end, please leave me a comment either on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube. Those are the three places I'm streaming right now. Tell me that you tuned in. Tell me that you watched. Tell me what the one big takeaway was from what you heard. And as a bonus for everybody who got to the very end of this video, I'm going to tell you about a very, very special offer that's happening in my Amplified coaching group this week. I've got a really crazy discount. It's like really crazy discount that's only going to be good for the next 4 days. If you want to join the Amplified group on Facebook, you can do that and find info there. You can subscribe to my newsletter, the Illustrious Consulting newsletter, by sending me your email address, and I can sign you up, or just message me. I will send you a link to chat and send you more info on the coaching program. But it's a coaching program that includes one-on-one calls with me, group coaching calls with other coaching clients, access to all of my books and mural templates and online courses, and private Slack channel, and lots of other amazing bonus content. So if you're interested in some coaching, if you need a high-powered thought partner in the business, you need somebody to help keep you accountable, you need somebody to help clear the fog, help you communicate maybe to leadership or to your teams. If you need that kind of coach who really believes in you and sees the potential in you, and you need to have that relationship, there's a 3-month program that I'm running. Just reach out. Just let me know. We'll chat. We'll see if it's a good fit. We'll see if I'm the right coach for you, and we'll take it from there. But there is a really great discount happening over the next 4 days if you're interested in that. So hit me up. All right. Again, if you've watched to the very end, leave me a comment, say hello, and tell me what you thought of, tell me what you think creativity has to do with business, and tell me how you have used or leveraged creativity in your business or on your team. Tell me about that in the comments. I want to hear about it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I will see you next time. Bye.